That when we're in community with one another, when we are aligned about what it is that we desire to have happen, the power can be incredibly far reaching. Being the beneficiary of it is that what you have prayed for is in alignment with God's will, and then the person has that experience, that healing happens. Hi, and welcome back to the Anika Apple podcast. Today on our episode, we're going to be talking about why healing is better in community. I think there's a lot about this topic that we can get into today, but before we dive in, I'd like to share something from my heart to yours. We are in a moment right now where there are a lot of opportunities that are opening up to us, and I wonder if you can see them. And when I say I wonder if you can see them, I don't mean like, are you seeing what you're seeing in your news feed and you're scrolling? I'm wondering if the things that you've dreamt about, if the visions that you've been holding, if the things that you've been remembering about who you are starting to connect with opportunities and gaps that you see in the environment around you. You see, when we have these moments where we can see opportunities outside of ourselves that connect with our truth on the inside of us, there's this beautiful synergy. And a lot of times we find ourselves in places where we're waiting for someone to say, the door is open, now go. And I'm curious if you are expecting the door to be open and you're ready to walk through. We're in a different season than what we've been in the past. And if we're waiting for other people to give us permission to build what it is that we know we're to build, then we will miss the moment. If we're waiting for people to introduce themselves to us when we know that it's a divine connection, we'll miss the moment. And so I want to draw your attention today to the fact that if you are believing in the opportunities and trusting in who you know yourself to be, that you should be walking forward, ready to take on the opportunities. So I'm just curious. Think for a moment. Are you seeing all of the opportunities unfolding? Are you waiting for them to show up in a certain way? Or are you waiting for an invitation? Because if you need an invitation, I'm here to give it to you in this moment. You're invited. Come play big. Be all of who you have been created to be. And don't let up until you achieve what it is that you know is your heart's desire. And that is from my heart to yours. So let's talk about healing. For those of you who it's your first time joining the podcast, I'm glad you're here. Welcome. My name's Anika Apple. I am a trusted advisor and coach. I am a public speaker and author, and I help people heal. And healing for me is a thread across all of the things I do, all of the ways that I show up through my business, who I am as a human being, as a parent, as a daughter, as a sister. Like all of those things are connected to healing. It is literally a part of how I move through life. I can remember a time years ago where I was sharing with someone that I had met relatively recently, and I was telling them that I'm a healer, and they were like, what does that mean? And it was really interesting because their pause had a lot of different components to it. What do you mean by healer? Are you talking about being a physician? As a healer, are you talking about something spiritual? Is it something woo-woo? Like, what exactly do you mean? And there's a lot of connotation that comes with that, right? I think in the world, we're always seeking meaning and understanding of things. And so a lot of times we assume what it is we think someone means instead of asking the question. I appreciated being asked. I shared my perspective, what I knew at the time, which was much smaller than what I understand about my purpose today. And, was met with, that's curious. And I love that positioning of being curious, of wanting to know and understand more about what it meant to me to be a healer. What I would tell you is that when I think about the work of a healer, it is to help people heal. And there are different ways that through different disciplines and things like that, that people show up to create a way for people to heal. Mine is not a specific discipline, so to speak. I work through spirituality, through people's intuitive gifting, through their connection to God to help them heal. And that happens through me, through my connection to God. It's pretty beautiful and feels pretty simple. I think maybe it's more complex than what I make it out to be, but that's it. And so part of the way that I help people heal is through my writing. It's through my storytelling, like this podcast. It's through the opportunities that I have to support others in healing capsules and other events. And it's in the Healing Crusade. I want to take a moment to tell you about the Healing Crusade, and then we'll get into the topic and you'll see how beautifully they are woven together. But a little bit over a year ago, God gave me the vision to start a community that was focused on healing. And the premise of this was to heal individually and collectively. And it was really important that we understood that healing, which can often be something that people take on individually and kind of do in secret and in private, was meant to be done in a way that people could have their privacy. They could navigate through whatever it was that they needed to, but also know that they had support with others who were going through healing something relatively similar, connected, so that they would not feel isolated. And the beauty of what we've designed in the community is that we have the opportunity each month to do different challenges. What I love about the way that you bring God's designs to life is that the details you haven't thought about, God has, right? And so in the Healing Crusade, we will have a specific topic that we're focused on, but you can apply it to multiple areas of your life. Sometimes we'll go deep in a topic, like, for example, in the month of March in 2025, we are focused on healing our relationship to money. And it's the energy of money. It's understanding the root of how we came to believe what we believe about money. It's thinking and understanding of how we see money fits into overall abundance. It's what are the words that we repeat to ourselves? What are the behavior patterns that we have around money? How can we learn from those things? How can we heal our relationship to those things? Sometimes healing is complex. I don't want to oversimplify it, but sometimes I think that people forget that every day we have the opportunity to make a choice and make a new decision. If something's not working for us, we can change that. And so simply put, we always have the opportunity to create change in our lives. And change is what? Healing. There's a part of healing that comes to us changing our mindset about something and deciding we want to do something differently, that we want to see it from a different perspective, that we want to engage with it differently. And so healing our relationship to money, as an example, is about the attitudes that we have about money. How welcome are we to money? What are the things that we might have inadvertently picked up, habits from other people, from our parents? What are the messages that we've heard in the world? Do we believe in the scarcity of money, or do we believe that it's abundant? What do we understand about how we attract energy? How do we relate that to money? So I'm giving you probably too much detail, but these are some of the things that we navigate through a month's challenge. And if you think about it, even though we're very specifically focused on money in this challenge, you can apply those same principles to the exploration of any other area in your life. If the area where you are feeling scarce in this moment is in your love relationships, what's the energy of love? What are you putting out? What are your beliefs about love? What are your beliefs about your worthiness to be loved? It's the same kind of thing. So there's the opportunity to be on your own path or be in the collective path, to join in community, to share your stories and experiences, and to heal. And probably the biggest thing that I've learned, I've definitely have had a lot of experiences in my own healing journey through leading the Healing Crusade. But one of the things that I learned is that when we build a community and we set the community on the right foundation, meaning that it's grounded in what God's desire is for it, the highest and greatest good for all, that there's the opportunity for people to heal simply by being a part of it. And that was pretty mind-blowing to me. And I don't know why it would be, Because if I remember some of the things that I've learned about healing across my journey, some of the things that I've had in my own experiences, and some of the things that got downloaded to me, I probably could have put them together, but seeing it in the way that I've experienced it in the Healing Crusade was much more salient. Like, I get it because I've seen it happen. What am I talking about? Well, sometimes people are not involved in a particular challenge or something that we're healing, yet they feel the benefit of it. It's like someone who is not physically present when you're praying for them, but then gets the benefit of the prayer, right? You could be praying for someone in a hospital halfway across the country, and that person is experiencing that love that you are sending through your prayers and well wishes that you lift up to God, to the divine. They're experiencing it. And the benefit and being the beneficiary of it is that what you have prayed for is in alignment with God's will. And then the person has that experience, that healing happens. So I think there's something really big for us to recognize here, that when we're in community with one another, when we are aligned about what it is that we desire to have happen, the power can be incredibly far reaching. And it can happen even if there's not conversation about these things. Probably too much to get into in this episode today. But I want you to recognize that there is a huge benefit to being in community when you are going through the process of healing. That it supersedes simply the ability for others to see you and witness you and to share their stories, which might resonate with you. But there's also power in our collective energy when we're calling forward the same thing, when we're praying for the same thing, setting expectations around the same thing. Why is it that we talk about representation in the workplace as an example, as something that is so meaningful? We want the different generations to be represented. We want to see people from different generations growing up the corporate ladder, right? We think about companies where there's still, the entire C-suite are all baby boomers. And for all of the other generations in the workforce, they're looking for opportunities to see that people have progressed and are breaking into that space. Why is it important? Well, we know that in the C-suite, as an example, if the decisions are being made there and it's not a diverse team, then it's possible that there could be an opportunity for some of the perspectives and ideas and the ways that they connect with and serve their customer, that they might be missing some of those marks because they don't have a diverse population in the room to help ensure that the variety of thought and perspective is considered as they're making decisions. And so we believe that representation matters, right? We know that, we see it across so many different things, representation in Hollywood, all you know. And so thinking about that related to healing, when we see other people on a healing journey, navigating through the generational patterns, the traumas that they've experienced, the lived experience in this lifetime, we know that it's possible for us to heal through those things too. We know that it's possible for us to thrive on the other side, that there's life after this trauma. That if we continue to make decisions in alignment with the truth within, and the decisions in alignment with the choices for what we desire for our lives, that we will see and experience things so differently than what is happening right now in this very moment. And so healing in community gives us all of those things. But the secret weapon here is that you can be the beneficiary of healing that is happening, that is cycling through others as they're doing their work. And that's big, monumental. Because sometimes, quite frankly, we just don't know where to start. Sometimes things just feel so heavy that we're like, I don't even know which thing is the thing that I want to tackle first. I see that sometimes in the life of my clients where they're like, I think I want to focus on this thing, and there's something glaring on the other side, right? There's an opportunity for us to be the beneficiaries of that healing work when other people are in community with us and they are doing the work. There's something really beautiful that is beginning to unfold for us And I hope you see it. I hope that this resonates with you because you know that this is the truth of what's in the world. Right now, there's a lot of distraction and stuff that's happening, and it's like heavy clouds on a somewhat sunny, clear sky day. You expect the entire sky to be clear at all times, and sometimes there's some big billowy clouds, not the wispy clouds, but the big billowy cumulus clouds, heavy, right? And yet the sun is still shining, and yet you can still see blue. Like there is the opportunity for both things to be true. So when you are doing this healing work, this healing journey, you can recognize that as you're going through the process of healing, that you might have some moments where it's more difficult for you to get to a certain thing. There might be layers or levels that you have to go through in order to get to the impetus for what is showing up for you in that particular area to be healed. And when someone else is navigating their way through it, there's some cues and clues that they can share with you. There's also some energy that you can experience. In our world right now, we are in that time, that sky where it looks incredibly blue, but then there are these big cumulus clouds, right? And the reality is you can focus on the cloud or you can focus on the blue sky. Even if that cloud is the place, the origin of precipitation, it's starting to rain from that singular cloud right there. You could decide to stand in the spot where the rain is coming down, or you could walk over a couple steps and stand where you're just outside the rain's reach. The truth of the matter is, what you are looking for in the world, you're going to find it. If you feel like it is a desolate time, it's dark, and you don't know what to do and where to turn and where to go, that's what your experience is going to be. If you choose to look at the world right now and say things are changing, and I think there just might be an opportunity for me to change with it. I might be able to create something new. This just might be the moment that I needed. The thing that could be the push for me to move me out of my place of comfort and back on my path to purpose. Healing helps us to see and to remember that we are called for something greater. It's certainly not the only thing, but it's a huge part of it. And when we remember that we are called for something greater, once that thing clicks in our mind, we keep on feeling the pull towards it. We'll have moments where there are things that happen seemingly serendipitously that call us to the path. We can get busy doing other stuff, what we do day in and day out, but eventually there's going to be another nudge. There's going to be another tug. And right now, you being on your path to purpose is so important. I always tell people you don't necessarily have to change your job to be on your path to purpose. But what you can do is actively ask God, ask the divine to help align what it is that you are doing, the way that you deliver your work today with who you're called to be. And then to show you ways that you can tap into what is your purpose outside of work. Perhaps that is you volunteering, or maybe it is starting a secondary business, or maybe it is the way that you minister or you support the community. There are ways that you can live into your purpose and not have it be your only mainstay. But I also always tell people, but if you are blessed to do what is your path to purpose for a living, my goodness, what a blessing to walk in what you are most gifted to do, to deliver the greatest gifts that you have to give the world and create income from it. And make it a part of what you do each and every day. I mean, does that not sound like living to you? A healed perspective helps you to see the way that you can take advantage of the opportunities that exist in the world to create the world that you want. So I want to know if that is what's unfolding before you, because if it is time for you to do the healing work. What undoubtedly happens as you begin to move into your next step is that you will begin to go through the process of doubting, of finding challenges. You'll find those old stories coming back. And when you do, navigating that through them by yourself is really difficult. But having your trusted team to share things with, to ask questions, to ask them to reflect what they're seeing in you, your shifts, your changes, the behavior patterns, it helps you to quicken the steps that you're making on your healing journey. In community, that happens naturally because people have the opportunity to witness you, to hear what you're saying, to see your experience unfolding as much as you're willing to share, right? And then they can reflect back to you in moments where you are pausing to ask yourself, what might you do differently? One of the coveted experiences that I have over the last few years was serving in a community that I love as a coach. And I can remember in the beginning, starting off in this, feeling like I needed to have the answer for whatever it was that came up, right? And that answer was typically me taking a question and posing it back to the person, right? So they could find that within. But that's what I mean, that I could just instantaneously pick out for them, like, what are the pivotal questions to ask them back that then would help them unfold and unpack it for themselves. What I very quickly saw was the power of having multiple people who got to know that person, experience their thought process, and then identify other questions and perspectives to bring to the table. For many, many years, my mom, who's a therapist, has had a therapy group, and I've never sat in her therapy group, but I can just remember her talking about the power of group therapy and many different professional and personal circumstances, about how when you are helping and supporting people in groups, they begin to become accountability partners for one another. They begin to reflect things back to one another. And so I remember that early on, talking to her about what group coaching could look like as a part of my career path. Fast forward, I find myself in this community and I'm like, this is what she meant. This beauty of being in space together where all of the people are equally invested in seeing people be successful, have the life of their dreams. In the Healing Crusade, we have the opportunity to do that for each other. We celebrate wins and we call out challenges and we reflect back, and people gain a lot of value from the moments that we spend in conversation with one another because the perspectives are often so similar. In some of the best challenges that we've had, there have been really massive breakthroughs for people. And later I will hear the individual stories because many of the members are connected to me, and they will share how what they heard someone else say made them go back and think about how they could shift things in their own life. And that introspection led them to really big breakthroughs, far beyond what the content that we created would have done by itself. Healing is best when you are in community, which does not usurp the fact that it is important for you to have your own healing journey, to chart your course, to know what you're focused on, what's important to you in this year. For example, for me, abundance is really important. And it's not about having it because I am abundant. It is about having a mindset that recognizes the abundant nature of the world that I live in. That there's always space, there's always room, there's always abundance, that more is always flowing at any given time. And some of you might say, well, but if you know that to be true, why is that healing? Because there are things in my journey, in my lived experience and beyond, that would say that that can't simply be true. We all have these experiences in our lifetime that stand in the way of us believing what our deepest beliefs are, what our truth is. If it were not that complex, we would all be standing in our truth right now and we wouldn't see the kind of shenanigans we see in the world. That's just it. But the truth of the matter is, the depth of our belief is really important to get to. And in order to get to that, we've got to do healing work. So last night I had the opportunity to host this session for Black women called Black Women Heal. And it was a beautiful and incredibly powerful healing experience. And what I would share with you is that before I had the opportunity to hold the space with women last night for this, the entire thing was downloaded through me in a way that I was very clear I was to present that healing that flowed through me, not try to recreate it, but to present what had already come through. This was really powerful for me because I recognize that the moment all of that flowed through me, that the healing was done. It was already complete. Like when we pray about something, for those of you who are prayer warriors, you know what I mean. Like when you pray and you're done and you say amen, you're like, I expect it to be so. Because we're not supposed to be positioning on ourselves where we're questioning whether the validity of whatever or not what we prayed is what we wanted to pray for, right? It's like you go knowing this is what you want the outcome to be. And whatever happens from that, you want to be in alignment with God's will. It's like that, right? And so I'm like, oh, so this healing actually already happened. Now what you're giving me the opportunity to do is to pull people together, to witness one another, to be in community together as they receive it. And the aha that I had connected to this is, oh, I can understand what this looks like in the world, where we want to have trust in one another because there's something similar in our experiences, right? So think about it for a moment. When you're hiring somebody for a role, you want to know that the experiences that they have are similar to the path that you took to get into that position. And if they're not similar, you want to know that those transferable skills, you want to be able to envision that the transferable skills are enough that you can see them being successful in this role because you know what it takes. That's very different than saying, come on in, this person's never worked in the industry, never had any experience, never maybe worked a day in their life, and saying, oh yeah, I trust you. Here are the keys to the kingdom. Let me give you the P&L and, have at it. Like, no one's doing that. We want to trust people. We want to have some level of trust, and use that word loosely. You know what I mean by this. We want to have a belief that they're capable. We want to look them in the eye and say, this matters to you as much as it matters to me, right? I was thinking about joining a sorority and how, in the legacy prior to the 90s, there was a process of hazing that used to be a part of initiations, right? And that process, part of what people talked about that they experienced was this connection of, you've gone through what I went through. Now, there are other ways to create that same kind of synergy and connection when you're intentional about it. But just as an example, understand that there's something in our humanness that says, I want to know that you've been through what I've gone through. I want to know that there is an equal value here to you that there is to me. Think about love relationships, right? People can talk about those being equally yoked. People talk about, I want the person to be at stake with me. Why do we have this relationship should be 50-50 thing? That's definitely another podcast episode. But people want to see the other person contributing in a way that feels relatively equal to what they're doing. And so here we are in this healing experience, and it's an opportunity for us to witness one another and say, oh yeah, you get this. You understand how important this is. You're willing to spend this period of time focusing on releasing the things that are standing in your way of being your best and brightest version of yourselves. I have no question in my mind that the women that participated in it live got something more from the experience because they were in community with one another. I also know that when you know people and you are in community with them and you are watching them, that level of accountability, being at stake for each other, does something to motivate and encourage and inspire people. Motivation being an intrinsic thing, but saying, because you know that you've said this is what you want and other people are watching and they're witnessing you, that you feel more motivated to do it. and you feel inspired by them encouraging you to continue on the path. Healing in community makes a difference. Being at stake for each other makes a difference, especially in a time where there's so much divisiveness that really is intentionally trying to separate us, trying to make us feel like our experiences are so very different, opinions are so very different, that there's no way for us to come together, which actually is absolutely not true. And for those of you who, subscribe to the Christian faith, I would just say to you, I was in Ephesians this morning, and in Ephesians 2, and somewhere around 14, verse 14, I was in verse 16, but somewhere around verse 14, it talks about how Christ came to take two men and bring them into one, to make them one. And that's community, where our shared experiences are the things that bind us together, that create the connectivity, that remind us that we're already connected. How do we know we're already connected? Because we're all human. There are differences between us, but we're connected. We like to think that the differences are actually the big thing, but the big thing is that we're all connected. And through love, we get to support one another and be present for one another and help one another through the difficulties of this journey. Our way through everything that is ahead of us is going to be connected to us being in community with one another. That doesn't mean that it has to look like what community has always looked like in the past, but it does mean that we're going to need to redefine it and define it in such a way that we're focused on the similarities and what connects us more than the things that have been levied to try and divide us. It does mean that we're going to want to have the opportunity to look others in the eyes and know, is this as important to you as it is to me? And in order to do that, to get to that place, you've got to be doing your own work first. When you are doing your own healing work, you show up differently in the company of other people. Then when you come into community with one another, you can hold space for each other. You can have that version, whatever the human version of trust is. I say whatever the human version is because spiritually, I always believe love man and trust God, because that is truly how I was raised. But to have this belief that we are in it together and that we want the greatest good, and to know that whatever else happens, it is what it is. Because sometimes we'll trust and we'll get it wrong. And in our getting it wrong, it will be a lesson, which actually means that we really got it right, if you follow what I'm saying. Because everything has purpose. It all has meaning, and it all has an impact in our life. So your takeaway today are a couple of things. First and foremost, do your healing work. It is critically important for you, for the quality of your life, for the opportunities that are around you, to get busy exploring what stands in the way of you being your best and brightest, being the fullness of who you are, enjoying life to the full. Second, explore what resources you need to support you on that healing journey. What does it look like for you to have however many resources that you need to support you, to listen? I'm a big fan of a great therapist. And then also what it looks like to have people in your inner circle who know what it is you're navigating. Perhaps everybody in my inner circle doesn't know what I'm navigating, but I'm going to tell you, there are 2 or 3 people every single time who know exactly what I'm going through, because they're the people that I go to each time, who understand, who hold space for me, and they hold me accountable, and they pray for and with me, and I pray for and with them. You need that kind of nucleus, right? And then you need community, where it's safe for you to be vulnerable, where you have the opportunity to learn and grow together, where you can experience the shift just by virtue of being a part of it. I mean, think about that. So I can be off focusing on whatever it is that is important for me to heal in this moment and still be the recipient of healing that is happening because other people are doing their work. And if you don't believe that that is true, then I would tell you to sit with God or do some exploration around how we heal generational patterns. The ancestral healing that we do impacts lineage before us and the ones that come after us. So when I'm healing something on behalf of my family, I see the healing opportunity go up to my mother and father, and they can choose whether or not they want to embrace that healed way as a part of their life. But for my children, it's automatically there. Oh, I can't wait until you read my book, Healing is Required, because these tidbits that are in there are so darn good. And they make us think so differently about what the potential is when we are serious about doing our healing work. So if I can heal things in my lineage, then it stands to reason that if I'm bringing people together in a community and we are connected through our commitment to heal, that people would experience healing even though they're not in that particular challenge or participating in that particular session or present for that particular healing capsule, because the opportunity is there. So as I wrap up today, I hope that you feel inspired to think about what healing communities are right for you, and that you will work on getting the nucleus and creating the space for you to be vulnerable so that people can experience. So as I wrap up today, I hope you feel inspired to explore what impact community can have on your healing journey. If you'd like to learn more about the Healing Crusade, I'll have a link down here in the show notes. And of course, you can visit my website at anikaapple.com. Before you go, I would like to encourage you to take a moment and explore the multitude of resources that are out there for healing. There are so many different ways that you can impact your healing. And again, I started at the early part of the podcast saying that sometimes that people are like, there's so many different places I could start. Where do I start? It's another reason that in the Healing Crusade, we've created pathways to healing. Because then we have an opportunity to say to someone, if you want to work on these things to start, here are a couple challenges that we would encourage you to do over the next couple of months that would help you do that introspective work. But whatever it is that you decide to do, make sure that you are doing your individual work as well. You always need a great journal, whether you're recording or you're writing, but an opportunity for you to just flow, just speak your truth. Journals are such incredible parts of our healing journey. We get to see the progress we've made. We get to hear some of our innermost thoughts without judgment and recognize things that we probably cannot see ourselves, but are present when we look back at what we've written. So it's a great opportunity to help you strengthen the process of healing. The other thing that I would encourage you to do is to really consider how you are allowing the purpose that you know is inside of you to show up in the world. And if you're ready to start on your healing journey and you're looking for support, I'd love to take a free discovery call with you and talk more about how the different offerings that I have in my practice might be a great fit for you. You can find more about those in the notes below. As always, I wish you peace and blessings. I'll see you next week on the Anika Apple Podcast.